Hello, Unbrick Me here, and today I'm doing a LEGO Technic discussion with the legendary Sariel.
Hi guys, it's a pleasure
Um,
to be here. Thank you.
what kind of sets do your hamsters like to play with the most or climb on the most? I mean, we watch your channel and we subscribe to it to prevent hamsters from getting bored.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's the favorite one.
Oh, yeah, it's very nice.
It's one of the Friends sets, I believe, and it's got a hamster with a treadwheel in it.
Y- yeah, that reminds me, have you thought about creating a hamster wheel out of LEGO Technic?
I kind of did. A couple of years ago, I have built something called a Roman treadwheel crane, and it was a hamster-sized treadwheel with a winch attached to a crane. So it was modeled after Roman cranes, which used human-powered treadwheels. And well, it was quite a long ago, I think, maybe as much as 10 years. So you won't find it unless you look specifically for it. But it worked, except that the hamsters, they were a bit lazy, you know.
Well, if you do get around to the idea of building a hamster wheel out of Technic, I'm very curious to see what it'll look like. I guess I would like to ask you, what do you consider to be the golden age of LEGO Technic? For me personally, I would say it's like 2007 up until 2012. I think the sets were golden in that time period.
Yeah, the power functions era, right? The introduction of the power functions was an amazing thing to happen to Lego Technic, and the possibilities that came with it were unprecedented. So that's surely a good point you have there. But personally, I have a lot of nostalgia for the 90s sets. The sets like the Space Shuttle, which I believe you have because I've seen it on the shelf behind you in one of your videos. And I also love the 8421, which is behind you as well. And these are not necessarily the best sets in terms of value or playability, but I loved how many new things Lego has tried back then. I mean, sets like the space shuttle with the fiber optics, that was something unique. The micro motors, the control center 1 and 2. These are sets that you can't really. There are no continuation, no successors. You know, you don't have anything like control center number 3. I mean, Mindstorms has some capabilities of the control center, but it's not exactly the same thing. Personally, I'm still looking for a good deal to get to buy the control center 2 set and build the T-Rex that you can control remotely. It's an amazing set.
Yeah, I hope to get my hands on it someday as well. It's really expensive on Bricklink. But in Legoland, I saw a life-size version of that dinosaur, the Technic T-Rex. Maybe you have something similar like that in Poland?
We don't have Legoland in Poland. I've been to the Danish Legoland in Billund, and they didn't have any T-Rexes. They had some pretty upscaled Star Wars. It's like the life size X-wing was there back when I was there. So that was probably the biggest one piece kind of set.
I want to continue the topic on the 8421. I remember, like 10 years ago, there was a Technic blog hosted by the designers on their website, and you made a few posts on there, and you talked about your sort of favorite Technic set, and back then you did say that it was the 8421. But has your opinion changed since then? Is it, another set now that, all these different sets came out?
It's a good point and a good research on your part because that was quite a long time ago. Lego was kind enough to invite me and I believe Eric Albert, also known as Blackbird in the community, and Fernando from Technic Bricks blog, which is no longer, I'm afraid, updated these days, which is very huge loss for us. But yeah, there were 3 of us. We were allowed to post notes on the official Lego blog, and well, I think I have 2 copies of the 8421 actually, if I remember correctly. Of course, all of them have been taken to pieces, sadly. But for me, it's a very important set. I think it's really pretty much the best set of the decade it came out in, and but I may be biased because I just love mobile cranes, right? But to answer your question, if there is any set that I like better now, There have been a couple of sets that are more advanced. There is, of course, the mobile crane Make 2, but I think it didn't make that much of an impression. It wasn't so innovative. And it's really hard to say. I have some favorites, of course, but I think the best sets are, I hope, still ahead of us. There are rumors about some giant leap crane set incoming this year, probably. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, speaking of Liber things, in 2019 when that excavator came out, there was so much hype around it. Lego did all these different commercials, and you were invited to the Liber construction site to actually control the real thing. Just wanted to ask you, I guess, how did it feel to have like that much power just at your fingertips?
It felt scary, to be honest. Well, it was quite an adventure, and it was very kind of Lego to have me there, because they could have done it all by themselves. I mean, the idea was theirs. They just wanted to have me as a guest, so that was very nice. And the whole adventure, because we had to go to Australia to film the excavator, it was amazing, and it was a bit scary, even though we were standing quite far from the excavator. Actually, the safe distance from the operating excavator is considered to be 100 meters, because it's so big that the operator may not be able to see you if you come any closer. So it's an amazing machine, and I have been sitting in the operator's cab, and to operate one of these is something really, words can describe it, really. You have to be there.
Yeah, it sounds like a very amazing experience.
It was, yeah, definitely.
You have a lot of nostalgia for the 90s sets, as you mentioned, such as the space shuttle. Just wondering which sort of system of building is in your preference, the studless, the ones that they use now, or studded Technic?
Well, for me, because I'm kind of old, I'm actually turning 40 tomorrow, so it's a day before my before I get really old, you know. But for me, I grew with only studded Lego. It was only studded bricks, no beams back when I was a kid, and it was only as an adult that I have come across the studless pieces, the beams and such. So it was kind of a difficult transition for me, but from the functional point of view, I definitely prefer the studless builds, because you can fit so much more stuff in there, and you don't have to worry about which side your stats are facing and whatnot. And well, my preferred way of building things is to have the Technic inside and system outside. So you only have stats on the outside, on the exterior, on the body details, but the entire inside is studless. I think it's a superior system, although there are some cases where it's preferable to use stats. Like, for example, we know that Technic bricks are more rigid than beams. So if you want something long that stays rigid and doesn't flex, it's better to build with Technic bricks than beams. And of course, if you want to use system pieces like more and more Technic sets do, it's also good to have stats somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I agree because studless has allowed Technic sets to incorporate very dense mechanisms in tight spaces. Although when you're like, imagine a Technic set that has all the different gearboxes and mechanisms inside, but it uses the studded system. So when you surround it, it's like a system set.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true.
Now I want to know your thoughts on the powered up system in general. Do you think it has delivered, or is it severely lacking in some cases over power functions?
Well, I think the thing that worries me is that the powered up system has replaced the power functions. I would have understood the change that Lego has made, because they have made a lot of changes compared to power functions, if these two systems were still available together, but they are not. And sorry if my kids are heard in the background.
No, no worries.
All right. And the problem for us builders, I think, is most of all the lack of any kind of backwards compatibility, because we have all these motors, wires, lights, and now we can't use them because it's a completely new system. Also, we can't really use it without a remote. You have to use a smart device. You have to control your stuff with a touch screen. I think it's a very huge change that is not welcome by everyone. Of course, there are cool possibilities such as ability to program your stuff and the motors that can stop at any degree that you want them to stop. Well, like we used to do in the Mindstorms, you can do that with power functions with pretty much any motor now, which is pretty cool. But overall, the change, I think there is a lot of majority probably of builders who have experience going back several years. I think they are going to stick to power functions, probably with something like S-Brick for easier control. But I don't see many people transitioning to power functions already, because again, it's a huge change. I think it's kind of a step backwards, especially when it comes to playability and to the general play experience. Because with the power functional set, you just turn it on and you are good to go. But with the powered up, you know how it goes. You turn your device on, there is an update, then there is a firmware update for your hub, or sometimes even for your motors. And then you have to download something, and then you have to enable some permissions, and so it goes and it goes. And it's just
Yeah.
to make a motor move, it's quite a lot of work.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that the new system in some ways sort of removed that plug and play experience. I have thought about how Lego would go about adding a physical controller if they ever tried it to the powered up system. In general, when I've thought about it, I think that there is a major problem when it comes to adding a physical controller, because nowadays a lot of the sets like the Liber Excavator, the Cat D11, they don't just use sort of the movements where you control a stick and then the motor goes whenever you activate the stick. They move in more sophisticated ways, like by 90-degree steps, or in the case of the Liber Excavator, multiple motors activated at a time for the complex arm, since the actuators are overlapping. And because of that, I think even when we get a physical controller, if we ever do get that, I think that we need to somehow also introduce the capability, like from the not from Pybricks, but official capability to reprogram either your controller or hub so that they can work, in and keep those sophisticated movements for each set.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember talking to Marcus Kosman several times, and he stated several times that they don't have any plans to introduce a physical controller because they can't really figure a truly, a universal way to do this, something that would fit any set. But it worries me that they rely on the smart devices so much, on mobile applications, because we know from experience that the support for the mobile applications is, it's here today, but it may be gone tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
As somebody pointed out, if you get a Lego train set from the 60s, the hardware still works, you turn it on and everything works. But 10, 20 years from now, who's going to say that you can still run a powered up application on your smart device, or whatever it is we are going to use them? Maybe chips in your brain, I don't know.
um, Yeah, you do raise a very fair point. Let's look at Mindstorm sets. I think they're like sort of, I guess, the best analogy we have to go off today when comparing it to the Control Plus system. These days it's very hard to program the RCX system. You run into a lot of issues, and if you don't have an old computer, you need to use an emulator on Windows. So it is definitely challenging, and that's something that we might have to face as Technic fans in the future, once there is no more Control Plus system, and once they have introduced some kind of new electronics system.
Yeah. Well, I guess we are going to see the Mindstorms set with the app for the robot inventor set, which Lego said they are going to support for the next 2 years, because they are legally required to do, even though the set is going to be retired in like a week. Because starting January 1st, there will be no longer any way to buy Mindstorms set from Lego directly. So I guess we are going to see what happens to the Mindstorms up after these 2 years pass, right? If they are going to remove it and effectively kill all the Mindstorm sets, or if there is going to be any sort of continuing support from the Lego Group. I think that's a huge issue, especially considering how expensive Mindstorm sets are.
This sort of brings me to the topic of the future of LEGO Technic. What do you want to see in the future, like in terms of sets? Maybe are there some kind of builds, like maybe bigger cranes or something that you want to see?
Yeah, I would definitely like to see bigger builds because I think there is some room to grow, especially if the price isn't like crazily high. But we are seeing like $600, $700, $800 Star Wars sets. So why not a Technic set in a similar price range? What I would like to see, definitely, I would like to see more lighting options because we pretty much don't have any. I mean, there is like one official LED for the powered up system, but I think it has only been used once in the lighthouse set, and it's pretty limited, to be honest. Considering all the amazing third party stuff that you get from the companies like Brick Stuff and many others, there are so many lighting capabilities to explore there that Lego is completely ignoring. Again, I'm going to call back to the 90s. We had a lot of sound bricks, LED bricks. It was, for me as a kid, it was a huge play factor for the Lego sets because I could make them blink, I could make them sound, and we don't get this. That kind of stuff today. We have some light bricks, but they don't do so much.
Yeah, I agree. And as you mentioned, in the past, we got things like fiber optics, and they were,
I still have this pretty cool stuff.
yeah, looks so good, especially when you turn off all the lights in your room and you can just, see them in action. When it comes to Lego Technic sets, do you prefer to have, do you value more the looks, the functions, or sort of more or less equally?
I'm going to go with the functions above all because well, it's just a matter of personal preference. I know there are people who only care about looks, and obviously there's a lot of people who, for example, love Lego buildings, which I have zero interest in. But for me, it's functions above all, and if it looks nice, then it's a bonus, right? I remember, for example, the bucket wheel excavator, the B model, it had the ability to like separate big bricks from small bricks, and when I saw it doing that, it wasn't a pretty model, it wasn't looking nice, but functionally it was pretty amazing. I think I still remember being amazed by what it could do, by the sheer functionality of it.
Um, yeah, I agree. Personally, even though the bucket wheel excavator did have some flaws, like the bucket wheel wasn't all that strong, I still really loved that set. I thought, since it was the first set to be, so big in Lego Technic, I thought it was pretty innovative, and it was probably the most excited I was ever for a Technic set in that time period. Um, So, in 2023, we're getting the Bugatti Bolide and the Monster Jam stuff. I guess now my question is, what is your favorite wave of Lego Technic that there was ever released?
I think I remember some very nice, very, very nice waves from around 2015, 2016. That was the time more or less when we got the bucket wheel excavator. I don't recall every set that was there, but I think that was more or less also the Mercedes Arox
Yes.
truck. Yeah, so these were some pretty huge and innovative Technic sets, and the Xerion tractor as well. I think that was back then. Yeah, so a lot of cool sets. I think that was my favorite time in Technic so far. We had some disappointments since then.
Uh, yeah, I certainly agree with you there. The tractor especially was great because, not just the motorized functions of it, but more that impressed me was its three modes of steering that you could
Yeah.
control just the front wheels, both of them, or crab steering. Um, yes, since then we've definitely had some disappointing Technic sets. In general, though, would you consider Lego Technic right now in its current state to be on the sort of on the decline, or are they, increasing in better quality?
Well, I think it's a complicated question. I think that for me personally, I believe that Lego Technic is trying to find its footing with the powered up system because I think what we are seeing from the sets that are on the market is that the motorized powered up sets are very expensive and probably time consuming to make and design. And from what I'm seeing, Lego isn't making as many as maybe they used with the powered function set. So with the power function system, so I think they are still trying to figure out what to do with this new system, what sets are going to sell, what sets are not going to sell. For me, a huge change, not in a good way, was going from the Liebherr excavator to the Caterpillar dozer, which I didn't like because it only had like four motors for quite a number of functions, and it did not work effectively. It was huge, it looked great, but the play experience was pretty major step down from the Liebherr, which had seven motors and any functions could work at any time.
Yeah.
With the dozer, we had to switch forward and back and forward and back, and it really ruined the play experience for me.
Yeah, me personally, I think that the summer or October waves are either staying sort of similar or even getting better over time. But the winter waves, I find myself disappointed in because remember in 2016 and 2017 we got things like the tandem rotor helicopter, we got the sort of air race jet, the big sets that had a gearbox and a motor to control everything. But now the flagship set is just the Bugatti Bolide, which I don't think is all that exciting as a Technic set.
No, but the new panels are pretty interesting. I think the supercar builders are going to appreciate them a lot. And of course, it's nowhere as cool as the supercar behind you. I see that you have that one.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite sets. The functionality is amazing. I mean,
Um,
it's more functional than the Lamborghini Scion or Bugatti Chiron, right?
Yeah. Um, s- well, personally for me, in Technic, there are lots of different categories of sets. They like to make cars, supercars, off-roaders, aircraft, maybe even watercraft, and construction vehicles. For me personally, I love the construction vehicles the most. My favorite set is the 8043 motorized excavator from 2010. I just love the ability to dig or push with a bulldozer. How about you? What sort of category of sets do you value the most?
Hmm. Well, I was pretty impressed with the Liebherr excavator because of the seven motors, because of the all the complex movements you could do with that, right? It was something new and unprecedented because I don't remember Lego Technic ever going to for having every single function motorized in any previous set, right? Usually you had a mix of manual functions and motorized, but in the Liebherr excavator, everything was motorized, and that was huge breakthrough for me. In general, what I would definitely like to see some nice off-roader or something better than the Mercedes Zitros track, which I think was again a bit of a letdown. I would love to personally, although it's probably never going to happen, I would love to see some watercraft, something that works on water from Lego Technic, because we have all these city sets that can float on water, but nothing in Technic, right?
yeah.
I mean, the only Technic watercraft is stuff that doesn't really float, and they tell you on the box it doesn't float. Don't put it in water. No, no.
Well, technically, because it's plastic, it floats. It's just not going to be stay upright.
Yeah, exactly.
I like a lot of different mechanisms in Lego Technic. One of my favorites is was seen in the crane truck and in the 8043 motorized excavator, which is the axle, the central axle going through the turntable with like a gears and driving ring surrounding it, so you can have two different independent motions through the center of a single turntable. I guess what mechanism impressed you the most in Lego Technic?
Well, I remember the double drive through the turntable. I think it was done in the motorized excavator that you have mentioned, using a differential, I believe, if I remember correctly. So that was mechanically pretty advanced. But recently, of course, the rescue helicopter with the swash plate mechanism, that was amazing. I think that was an amazing work from Marcus Kosman, and I guess from you looking on the shelves that you have this set somewhere near, and you probably like it too.
Yeah. Let me just get it real quick.
Yeah, sure.
There it is, right here.
Right, right. So mechanically, it's amazing, and well, I don't see many alternative uses for this mechanism, but the mechanism itself is pretty amazing and highly realistic. So that's what appeals to me.
I love that this helicopter is so educational. Maybe one of the most accurate sort of helicopters we have ever gotten in LEGO Technic. It just makes me wish that we still got B models for Technic sets. I feel like they could you could do some great stuff, in an alternative build with this helicopter.
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
I wish we had more B models too, but I guess it's no longer cost effective for the Lego company.
yeah, perhaps that is the case. They do have statistics of how many people download specific instructions. Maybe not in comparison to the number of sales. Maybe not that many downloaded the B model instructions. So
Yeah,
I guess
probably.
that could be a reason. But fortunately, lots of different grade B models exist on Rebrickable and things like that.
Right.
Maybe Lego could, release a special app or, do a website feature or something where they showcase the MOCs of different fans, that have created to complement the Technic sets. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, but they did. They kind of used to do that in the old sets in the 90s, and where on the boxes you could see some ideas for alternative builds, and then they would get angry calls from the parents demanding instructions for something that was on the box but not in the instructions. So I think they don't want to go that way again, probably.
I'm sure you have played a lot with the 9-volt system of Lego. Uh, I guess, sort of, what do you like most about each system? 9-volt, the power functions, and powered up.
Well, I loved the micromotor, of course. We don't have anything like that in the powered app or power functions systems. I liked the compatibility between the 9 volts and powered power functions, which we don't have in the powered up system. I liked the extension cables and being able to stack plugs because that gave you a lot of flexibility in your builds, and it was especially useful for bigger models. Right, with the powered up, we don't have that option, and simply deciding where to put the hub in your model has a huge impact on where you can reach with the cables or not. So I think again we go to the change that Lego has made. I think they have lost a lot of good stuff that was really a major advantage for the power functions system. They have lost that, trying to kind of, I think, replace Mindstorms with the powered up. Maybe that was the idea in the long run. I'm not sure. Generally, I think that most of us builders, we were expecting something akin to the S brick, so you could control your existing motors wirelessly without the infrared, which doesn't work very well. And instead, we got something that goes a couple steps too far, I think.
Yeah, you do raise some very fair points. It also it makes it challenging for the Control Plus system. Even though we do have third-party options specifically from PV Productions, which lets you put extension cables on the powered-up cables, all of those extensions cost $15 or more. So it's very costly to just buy all those extension cables, which is why I think we need more first-party solutions from the Lego company. I'm sure it's not expensive to make just an extension cable. You just put some wires together.
Besides,
And also another advantage of the power function system was that because it just used a simple battery box, there were third-party solutions where you could just connect that sort of small rectangular 9-volt battery, and use that as a means for motorization. That's actually my plan what I want to do with the Bugatti Bolide, I want to take that small 9-volt battery and use the power function system to try to motorize it. Although it's a very dense build, so I'm not sure if I'm able to do that.
Yeah, best of luck. Yeah, it would be nice to have some smaller power supply options from the LEGO company because, again, there are some third-party alternative solutions like the cube bricks, which I have chance to play with, and they have this very small box that works as a power supply and controller, and it's absolutely very, very tiny and very useful. It works very well, so it's definitely doable. But Lego probably doesn't see the need to develop something like that. I remember that they said that they have only developed the rechargeable battery, which is like the holy grail of Lego Technic builders because it frees you from having to buy batteries again and again, or recharging batteries again and again. They have only developed this for the trains products to make the trains run longer. They have never expected it to become popular with the Lego Technic people, so it shows that Lego doesn't quite recognize what we need, what we want.
Yeah, and that battery box that you just showed, it's like at least $100 on Bricklink, so it's just so unobtainable now. I personally only have one of those battery boxes, so I kind of have to be very careful when I use it.
Yeah, and another factor is that these boxes are quite old already, and they are going to stop working sooner or later because the power cells are going to, be too old to work.
Yeah, eventually the batteries do degrade over time.
Yeah,
I want to ask you a few questions when it comes to designing your own creations.
sure.
In general, when you first get the idea to, seeing the final finished model, how long does the process take?
Well, it can take years, or it can take a couple of weeks. In general, as my creations have become more complex and more focused on the looks, I found it much more time consuming than it used to be for me like 10 years ago. So 10 years ago I could build something in a week or two, and now I have to wait weeks to get a specific part in specific color for the exterior from the bricklink. And I think that the completion time has really grown with the complexity. I have too many projects that have been in development for years now, and I have to already finish them. Yes, so it varies a lot. I realize that people who watch my stuff, they are not happy with some of the projects taking too long. So this is something I have to work on. But of course, I'm busy with the work, the family, and building a house that I hope to move on into in a couple of months, maybe.
That sounds like a very exciting project. Building your own house.
It's the ultimate my own construction.
Yeah. In general, when you build your own creations, do you prefer to make your own original stuff, or do you prefer to look at models and recreate sort of vehicles that are seen in real life?
I found that I definitely prefer to recreate something from the real life because I don't really have such great imagination as some other people who just invent stuff. And I also found that it's too tempting to compromise your idea for how something looks just to get it to work easier. So if it's your idea, you can make it bigger, smaller, or whatever. You are not really limited by the appearance, right? I find it less challenging, because if you compromise the look of something that's modeled after a real object, it's going to show. But if it's like a fantasy vehicle, then you can just say, "Hey, I was planning to stretch it or whatever." It's too easy to compromise.
Me personally, I just try to focus on mechanisms. I don't really build, complete vehicles or anything like that. I just kind of focus on, gearboxes or some kind of different drivetrains, but without ever finishing the body. That's what I like to do personally.
Yeah, it's a cool activity. I also find myself often enjoying building just the chassis, and then kind of having to build the body. Sometimes it's like, it's not as cool as the chassis.
I have a very cool question for you. So, if you could add any Lego Technic piece that you wanted to, what would it be?
That's a good question. Maybe helical gears, like the gears that have teeth, at angle, not perpendicular to the gear itself. So it's the kind of gears that the real car transmissions use to make shifting smoother. Maybe something that would work as a leaf spring, maybe because we don't really, we only have springs, in Lego Technic and no leaf springs. Uh, maybe some very efficient propeller for watercraft or for planes, because again, most of the Lego propellers are just designed to look well. They don't necessarily work that well.
Personally, I want to see some new different types of differentials in Lego Technic, like limited slip differentials, maybe a torsion differential,
Yeah,
just
that would be
something
cool.
to increase the functionality of supercars.
Yeah, I would love to see also larger rims, so that we can. I think that's the size of the Lego wheels is a limiting factor on how big we can go with our models. It's a huge limiting factor, because above certain scale, you have to kind of custom build your wheels, or you have to use non-Lego wheels. And I would love to see the BMW bike from the Lego gave me some hope, because they have used new bike wheels that were larger than any wheels before them. So that kind of gives me hope that maybe Lego is going to go for the bigger wheels, the bigger scale stuff. I would love to see that.
Yeah, me too. And that motorcycle was so amazing. It added the new shock absorbers and lots of different cool pieces. It was so amazing. Um, and Lego kept it hidden from the general public pretty well. There was the leak that happened on one of their official Instagram accounts, but it was only 2 hours earlier before the official reveal. So that was a very well kept secret. When you to sort of finish off our discussion, just my final question: when you do reviews of sets like that have never been shown before and that are top secret, do you ever find yourself concerned that somebody will look through the window and take a picture or something like that?
Not really, no. Every place I lived, there was either we were living on a certain floor above the ground, so there was no possibility of anybody looking through the window, or like now we live on the ground level, but we have our own backyard, which has fences on all sides, so nobody is going to come in and look. And in my house, also my Lego room is going to be on the first floor, so above ground. So again, and I have a forest behind my window, so maybe some birds can fly by and look at the new Lego sets. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I think that birds should be allowed to an early sneak peek access to Lego sets.
absolutely.
Um, Well, I really enjoyed discussing Lego Technica with you. I've been a fan of your channel for, such a long time. I was actively watching, most of your videos since 2016, and I have come across your channel since maybe 2014 or even earlier, just occasionally watching a video every now and then. And, it's a real dream come true to finally, speak to you in person. And I just want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Um, well, I hope we might have a chance to do something similar again, and I'll see you later.
With pleasure. Thank you, and best of luck in growing that very nice collection that you have there.
Thank you.
It's good stuff. Thanks.
Uh,
Bye.
Bye.